Sure.
Okay, so let's start. So now we are going into the people dimension of it because all the way we are talking about HR, human resource planning. So this particular unit is about people aspect. So when it comes to people, it talks about personality, attitude, perception, creativity, and all those particular concepts which we read in our first year to some extent. Okay, so we'll go through one by one. So first is the concept of psychological contract. I think we got this as a question in our first subject. What is psychological contract? It is an unwritten rule between employee and organization, some expectations that employee have on the organization and organization have on this particular employee. So it is called as a psychological contract, which is unwritten. So nobody explicitly calls it out, but you expect it. Okay. So, but anyway, it is getting even more complicated from the HR point of view. Only point that you need to remember here from this subject point of view is this psychological contract is one thing which HR needs to manage, and it is becoming more and more complicated because now it is the environment is much more dynamic when compared to earlier. Now we have global organizations coming into picture. Now we have like what it means global organization coming to picture, because every country might have a different set of psychological contracts because people expectation change from country to country, right? Similarly, the environment is so changing that you might have to actually deal with certain things like downsizing a company, removing a certain unit, or restructuring, etc., which could have impact on your psychological contracts, right? So that is the part of psychological contract. Now coming to person job fit. Okay, so basically, it is again going into the job designing aspect where you are trying to find the right fit, that is right person for this job, right? Always, this is a very tricky task where you actually find the exact fit. It is not always possible to do that, but you are going to actually both consider person and organization and then try to actually fit. Okay. So sometimes you actually fit, and whatever the things that you actually find as missing elements, you will try to train them and operate. Okay. And every person is unique. So you could not have, I mean, it's not humanly possible to assess every aspect of it while you are actually doing the fit. Okay. This is person job fit. Okay. And the second one is personality and organization, right? So basically, when it goes to personality, this section is talking about how a personality of a particular person is going to have an impact on the overall organization. So obviously, if I have a person who is cranky, he is going to make other employees cranky. So that means personality is very, very important for an organization to be happy, right? So there are various personality tests and frameworks. First, Big Five, which we have done in practicals of in our first year. It is the same Big Five framework which is used in the organizational context as well. Okay, here in this section we have five traits. It is the same traits: agreeableness, conscientiousness, negative emotionality or neurociticism, or whatever. We in first year we read that as neurociticism. In this text it is mentioned as negative emotionality. Both are same. Extraversion and openness, these are the same thing, but you can write some contextual aspects when it comes to organization. Let's say if an employee is having negative emotions, what it means, he is more likely to get stressed, and maybe he will have more emotions when he gets stressed. Okay. So if a person is agreeableness is high, what it means, he might have good relationship with their co-workers. He might have a good relationship with his managers. If he is open, he will be willing to listen to other employees. Extraversion, he might go and meet other units, have that particular contacts everywhere. He will maintain those relationships. If he is conscientiousness is high, he would be more sincere to work that he is going to do. Okay, at the same time, if he is less conscientiousness, there is more chances of he taking varied work rather than concentrating only on work, only one thing. Okay, so that is what is big five. So now going into Meyer-Briggs framework. Meyer-Briggs framework has got it is another framework similar to Big Five, where here it analyzes four dimensions: sensing, intuition, judging, and perceiving. These are the four dimensions that it actually checks. Sensing, I think everybody knows what is sensing. Intuition, this is also something we know. Judging, perceiving, right? So these are the elements that it checks. It based on this, it classifies, it makes like a grid. So here it doesn't really work as individual parameters. So it makes 4x4 metrics kind of a thing. Okay, these four calculated into like a grid, and it identifies 16 different personalities. 4 into 4, 16. These four dimensions calculated into four. So 4 into 4 grid is made, and people are fitted into this 16 types functionality. Okay. So this actually, some of the things would actually give indication in terms of how a person would develop a relationship, how positive he will be, how he will actually excel in achieving certain goals. All these things would actually come out of this grid. That is Meyer-Briggs framework. It has got 16 different personality styles, 4 dimensions. Okay, so now we are going into other personality traits which is of interest. So unlike Big Five or Meyer, we are now going into individual personality traits which might be of an interest for us. Locus of control. Okay, it's about a person having a feeling of he having a control on certain thing. Okay, so if I have a sense of control, if I feel that I'm the one who is controlling my future, then I will behave in a proper way. But the person who is having, you know, extreme locus of control, he might actually say, see, there is an internal locus of control where I am saying that I am controlling myself. If I am having extreme locus of control, my feeling would be like there are certain forces which is beyond me who is controlling me. I don't have anything in my hand. That is what is the extreme locus of control. So this is one of the personality trait which is going to actually dictate how you're going to behave in the organization. And next is self-efficacy. I think this term we read it in OB as well. Self-efficacy is nothing but your understanding on capacity. If you think that you are capable of taking something, then only you will put more effort. If you don't have self-efficacy, there is a chance that you will not even try to do it. So this becomes very, very important so that people can start doing it uh, and also that is what dictates how much effort you are going to put as well. Okay. Authoritarianism, so basically it has got two dimensions. One, how much you believe authority, and how much authoritative you are, right? Basically, if you believe it, what it means is there are more chances that if boss says something, you are going to listen. If you don't believe it, what it means is when boss says, you will actually question back, boss, why I should actually listen to you? You are a manager, but you can't talk crap. That is what people will behave when they don't believe in this, right? At the same time, if you are the manager, you'll be more authoritative if you believe. If you are doesn't believe, that you are not authoritative, right? I don't know how to pronounce this. Machiavellianism or whatever it is. What it means is behaving like a macho, a person who is going to actually try to put control on everybody, right? He will direct people. He will try to actually control how others should behave. So he is like person who is manipulating the people for his own gain or for his own good, right? And with people with less of this Machiavellianism, so maybe it is Maco plus villainism both combined. If he is less of a villain, then he would actually understand others' emotion more. He will value others' thoughts. He will have like, he will not really manipulate others and all those stuff. Okay. Self-esteem. I think this is also very evident. Okay. We know what is self-esteem. The person who is having self-esteem will have like, he will believe, he can do higher status jobs. He will be confident and all those stuff. Okay. Risk propensity. So it is like a person's ability to take more risk. Okay, so that is what risk propensity is. Now, next, it is going into attitudes in organization. Okay, so so we completed people, we completed personality. Now we are going into attitudes. Okay, so first thing is formation of attitudes. Okay, how attitudes are formed? What is the basic structure of attitude? What exactly is the cognitive dissonance? So this is how is the order that we are going to learn. First, formation of attitude. How attitudes are formed? We form a favorable attitude about a person or an object if we have a pleasant experience with them. If we have an unfavorable experience or unpleasant, we will form an unfavorable attitude. Okay. So it is like there are variety of forces. It could be your values, it could be your experiences, the personalities, attitudes of the. So these are all would actually form the attitude towards it. Right? There are three components as far as attitude is concerned. One is the affect. The second is cognition. The third is intention. Okay, so I'll tell you what exactly the cognition and intention is, and then come to the effect. So cognition, it is about the knowledge that one has got on something. Okay, so knowledge might be true, might be partial, or whatever it is. So you know something about it. Okay, so whether you know things based on perception, you know things based on the reality, truth, or etc., is keeping aside. So when you are forming an attitude, cognition, this knowledge becomes one of the aspect. Okay. Next is intention. Okay. So basically, there are actually certain things. If somebody is doing, there is an intention behind it, right? So if that intention is known, and if you are able to correspond that particular intention, then also your attitude towards it would actually change. Okay, for example, you perceive that your boss really gave you a nice scolding, but you know your boss intention was to actually make you perform well for your own good. Then your attitude towards your boss will be in a right direction. You cognized that he is actually, scolding, but you also understood the intention of it. Then your attitude would be in the right way. Effect is the result of it anyway. So these are the three components as far as the cognition is as far as the attitude is concerned. Right? What is cognitive dissonance? Okay, it is about there is an internal conflict within you, within each. I mean, when your values or your experience, etc., says something, but you are actually trying to do something because of some XYZ reason, right? So your cognition or perceptions are in contradiction to your experience. Then this cognitive dissonance would come into picture. So it is like you behave in a different way, but you believe something else. You think that taking drugs is wrong, but you end up taking it for some XYZ reason, right? So that is what would cause the cognitive dissonance, where your attitude is not in consistence with your behavior. Okay, it affects in various ways. People might actually take various steps to actually dissolve this cognitive dissonance. There is a constant fight. Either you will change the attitude towards it, and in the end you will say that drugs are super, just because you are not able to stop that behavior, or else you might actually try to quit it in some way or the other, right? So basically there are various things that could be possible, but it is going to keep individual worried, and it is going to give lot of tensions. So it is not good for an individual to have this kind of a cognitive dissonance. Okay. So some of the keywords related to attitudes. So your attitude has got like, I mean, what is your attitude towards the job? It is job satisfaction. Attitude to your organization is going to be dictating the organizational commitment. Okay. So now affected mood in organization. Okay. So research shows that there are short term. So basically what research says is the mood and effect is something that constantly changes for every person. It's not that every person is going to be highly consistent. Okay, so and sometimes you might be angry, sometimes you might be sad, etc., etc. So there is short-term fluctuations are usual, but at the same time, most of the people are fairly predictable. When somebody is going to have certain mood is predictable, right? And some people are like having a negative mood most of the times, have a high emotions most of the times. I think that is where anyway big five personality trait of neuroticism or whatever is also concentrating on. Okay, but the mood is one of the important things as far as your overall organizational performance is concerned. So that is why this is talked about again here. Okay, now we are going into the next section of perception. So we covered people, we covered personality, we covered attitude. Now we are going into perception. Okay. So perception, as a term, everybody knows, right? It is like how you perceive things. It's like when you are actually seeing something, there are two ways, two things of perception that comes. First is selective perception. What it means is you might actually say that so and so person is good. You might have that perception, right? So and so person is good. When you have this perception, even though that person does something which is wrong, you might tend to ignore because you want to stay away from any contradiction that is there to your perception. Your general belief is, was so and so politician is good, he is doing well. Let's say if he gets a policy which is bad, your perception might not allow you, or rather you might actually rule out that particular small bad thing, saying that okay, कुछ तो होगा, because ये किया तो शायद कुछ होगा जो मुझे पता नहीं है, types, right? So that is called as a selective perception. So managers, if they have good impression on a particular resource, even though some mishap that happens here and there with that particular employee, he might ignore because of selective perception. Stereotyping is the another aspect of perception where you might actually say that, boss, if he is from this particular region, if he is from this particular caste, if he is from this religion, he might be in this way. Basically, you are taking certain small attribute of a person and trying to judge his whole behavior. Okay, whether it is language, culture, religion, region, etc., etc., you have some stereotyping in your mind. Okay, ye Punjabi hai, so he might actually be in this way, or he is from he is from some remote village. Maybe he is going to, his thought process is going to be like a village thought process. That is the stereotyping that you would have. Okay, that is another perception. Okay, so perception and attributes. So basically based on the perception, you would actually try to associate certain attributes to the behavior. Okay. So there are three things that are there, which is consensus. Okay. So consensus, consistency, and distinctiveness. So these three things would actually vary. So based on people, so how you form a perception is based on these three things. Consensus, to extent to which people in the same situation behave in the same way. Okay, so basically, if there is a situation and if you are going to actually behave this in this particular situation in this way, okay, so there is some perception in your mind. Agar ye life threatening सिचुएशन है, मैं तो पहले भाग जाऊंगा और कोई भी है तो भाग जाएंगे, right? So you expect that person also to actually run away. That is like consensus, having synchronization, or rather your perception is in sync with the situation, because you have that he is behaving, I mean he or whatever you or other people are behaving in the same way during that. Consistency is the degree to which same person behaves in the same way in different times. Basically, he is the person who is going to get angry on small things, right? Every odd small thing he is becoming angry. Then my perception is he is an angry person, because he is showing that consistency. Like, oh yeah, he is going to actually be angry because I have seen him becoming angry in all small things. So it is like his consistency is very high as far as becoming angry. Distinctiveness, that means same person behaving in the same way in the different situations. Basically, it is like mark of a particular person. Basically, he has got similar behavior in different situations. Okay, so not the same situation, different situations, but this a person I say behave karega, that is the distinctiveness. Okay, so these are the three aspects as far as the perception is concerned, and the combinations of these things would vary person to person when it comes to this, and based on this combination we form our perception for that person using these three things. So internally our thought process goes around these three things when we form the perception. Okay, next thing is creativity. We are going into creativity, where so as a creative individual, there are multiple things that are actually be part of the creativity. One is personal traits and creativity. Okay, so there are certain personal traits a creative person would have. He will have very high levels of energy. Okay, and he will be open to find new ideas, right? He will have very confidence, very strong confidence. He will believe in himself, etc., etc. So there are certain personal traits which is going to help him to be more creative. Okay, and the second aspect is intelligence, cognitive ability. So I think we read it in first year. I don't know how many people would remember. There is a link between intelligence and cognition. So for basic creativity, obviously intelligence forms precondition. So you require that basic intelligence to be creative. But when it actually grows, creativity and intelligence diverge. If you remember, there is a torchlight kind of a diagram that we read during our first year, which actually in the beginning both intelligence and creativity converge, but as it grows, the intelligence becomes, I mean, independent, creativity becomes independent. So they are not necessarily dependent on each other, right? So that is what is cognitive ability. But precondition is still required. You require intelligence to be creative. Creative process, right? So generally creativity comes in a flash, but it does have a process and it actually goes through the process. Next few lines that we are going to read is about that process. First is preparation. One has to actually learn something so that he can get an idea. ऐसा नहीं है कि I will actually have a flash and I suddenly I get an idea related to some chemical reaction. I need to know chemistry before even getting that idea, right? It cannot be a miracle. So first thing is preparation is needed. I need to be trained. I need to understand the business so that I can be creative. The second is incubation. Okay, this is where your idea came, but you need to actually do some kind of a preparation so that the idea can be presented to the other people. It can be matured so that you can take it to the next level. Next is insight. Okay, so this is where your understanding of that particular thing, you're gathering data, how it is useful, where it is useful, and all those stuff. The last one is verification. Here you are verifying your idea. After gathering all the insights, you are verifying whether your idea is really good or not. So this is typically the process that we actually go through as far as the creative idea is concerned. Even though idea comes in flash, there is a series of steps that it has to actually go through. Next is enhancing creativity in the organization. How somebody can enhance creativity in the organization? First of all, it has to be there in the culture. If somebody is giving an idea, you should not act, you should actually, have some kind of a framework so that you can actually take it further, right? And if idea fails, you should not penalize people. If idea is successful, you should reward people, right? If idea fails, if you start punishing people, then next time they will not come with any idea, because we are talking about creativity here, right? So next is types of workplace behavior. What kind of behaviors that you really require or expect, or whatever it is, right? So as an organization, first is performance behavior. Everybody need to actually behave in such a way that they can have good performance as an output. Okay. So next is dysfunctional behavior. Okay, dysfunctional behavior is exactly opposite to the performance behavior. Here we are talking about behavior which is going to promote or reduce the performance, like absenting. I'll bunk the you know I'll bunk the office and I'll go for a movie, right? I bunk meetings. Those kind of things are absenteeism. Turnover, I'll join some other job, resigning here. Theft and sabotage, कुछ उठा के लेके आ गया organization से, right? Sketch pens, charts, or whatever. I think people do that, where you actually bring all the stuff for your personal usage, right? Those kind of theft and sabotage. The next is methods to overcome dysfunctional behavior. Is like, oh yeah, now this dysfunctional behavior is bad. What are the methods? So there is something called as an organizational citizenship. The word is complex, but it is as simple as there are certain behavior which is good for organization. Organizational citizenship is nothing but those goody things that organization tells that, oh yeah, my employee is very loyal, my employee behaves in this way, my employee is very positive, etc., etc. Those goody things all accumulated together is organizational citizenship. You need to promote this organizational citizenship. You need to reward those people who are good citizens of your organization, which is displaying these kind of characteristics, so that you promote overall organizational citizenship and reduce dysfunctional behavior. Okay, so now we are going into short-term HR planning. Short-term HR planning is nothing but, uh, in this particular section of short-term HR planning, instead of explaining what needs to be done in short-term HR planning, it more concentrated on what are the problems with short-term, long-term HR planning. Okay, so so it started with what are the issues of long-term HR planning, okay, and what is the organizational context and other things which could have an impact during long-term HR planning, those kind of things. It rather explained more on long-term HR planning and their issues rather than explaining anything on the short term. Okay, so first thing, what are the issues? So impact of change and difficulties. So predicting future is like a black magic. So it is still not an art which people really know for sure, right? So there are certain methodologies, but it can't be perfect, right? And obviously, organizations' priorities changes, strategies changes. Even though you predicted, you recruited, but you changed, okay, because of some XYZ reason. Okay, and there is actually, I mean, there is always in the manager's mind, there is some kind of a difference in terms of theory and planning. So this difference is going to also have an impact on your long-term planning. Okay, lack of evidence that human resource works. So certain things that when you plan and trying to actually doing the actioning part of it, you don't have evidence that so and so actions really work, or so and so way that is going to work. So this lack of evidence is another issue with the long-term planning. Okay, these are some of the issues with long-term planning. Okay, so next is organizational context of HR planning coming under this particular thing itself, where approach will also be affected by the degree to which it is possible to make accurate forecasts. Okay, so it is again an issue which it is talking about. Organization develops some action plans which are derived from broad resourcing strategies. So there are broad resourcing strategies, and these action plans are being made from that broad resource, broad action. I mean, broad resourcing strategies, and based on that, there is analysis of demand and supply that is going to done, and that is going to be done. Okay, so not sure how exactly this is aligning to short-term planning as a section, but these are some of the points which are mentioned here. Okay, recruitment planning, how recruitment needs to be planned. Okay, so number of types of employees required to make any deficits they are needed. So basically, you are assessing what type or how many employees that you really require for your organization. Second thing that you are doing is where you can get those particular employees, that is likely sources of candidates. Third thing is what are the alternate sources like, can I recruit some contractors, can I get some part-time employees, can I actually do some magic so that I can probably get the candidates, right? Those are all tapping alternate sources. And then last point is recruitment will be conducted based on the above things. We actually start recruiting. So this is the recruitment planning. Next, we are going into employee choices plan. This is like how you are going to attract talent. I mean, basically, you are talking about how you are going to fool the employees so that they can actually be attracted to your company or an organization, right? So you could actually offer more remuneration. You could probably tell that there is a opportunity for them to learn. This is a good role and all those stuff, right? And you might actually show them the future. If you learn this, you are going to be next Bill Gates kind of a thing, right? And you might actually show that, I mean, in my company, work-life balance is very, very good, right? So those kind of, there are various carrots or biscuits or whatever that you actually say that you can offer so that employees can be attracted to your organization. That is what is employee choice plans. In that, some of them is, first is flexibility plan. Okay, so what it means, you are going to actually have some, I mean, plans so that you have an operational flexibility, right? So it is like you have employees who are like skilled in so and so area. You are going to actually take them and teach them out. Say, for example, some of the companies, IT companies now started recruiting even degree holders. Okay, I'll give you an example. Right now, people started recruiting BSc in ITs. Earlier, the degree holders were not getting recruited in IT companies. Now they started recruiting because they think that now they can train those degree holders and use for certain types of jobs. That is what is the flexibility plan. Okay, so and also in certain cases you might actually, other type of security plan is even you could get some third party contractors induced into your company so that you can easily downsize at later point of time when the work is done. You don't have to induct as a employee. So that is another way of doing it. So next program is part-time workers. Part-time workers, I think the name itself is very, very evident, where you are talking about getting some employees for part-time to work only on certain time period. You just work in the morning half, that should be sufficient, right? So some of the advantages of it, you are giving flexibility for the employees. Okay. and you are going to reduce the cost for your company. You don't have to recruit them for full time. Okay, and if it is shorter plan that they are working, their attention level will be high. Some of the disadvantage, obviously, there are more likely chances that they might leave because you are paying less. They are working only part time for you. Their commitment will be much lesser than full time employees. So there are certain disadvantages to it. Job sharing. This is nothing but the concept of you trying to share the same job with two individuals, half and half. And pay also, you are paying half to this person, half to this person. That is what is job sharing. Home working and teleworking, I think name itself is very, very evident. Here we are talking about work from home or work from some other location. Next is subcontracting. This name is also very evident, where you are giving a job as a contract. Once it is done, they are out. Okay, so it does have advantages. You don't have to recruit them, in a permanent basis, but you end up paying more. These employees will not have so much of commitment. So even quality of them is something which is questionable, right? So all these things would actually come into picture as far as subcontracting is concerned. Next is flexible hour arrangement. I'm not going to talk about this flexible hour arrangement because in OB we have almost half of the unit talking about this flexible hour. What you are actually saying, you are giving some kind of a flexibility for an employee. It doesn't matter when you work, but complete this particular task kind of a thing, or else you will have a reduced work week. You have an alternative schedule, staggered start, all those things. You are trying to actually meddle with the work hours and trying to give some flexibility to them. All would actually come under this flexible hour arrangement. Next is downsizing plan. So this is nothing but if you have to remove your employees, what you should do, right? So first of all, if you are removing the employees, you need to be very, very sure that you don't require them. Okay, so you need to do that particular basic analysis of it. You need to take trade unions into your side. If you just remove them without any consultancy of trade unions, it is a problem. Okay, you need to identify if there are any employees who want to voluntarily go. Encourage them to voluntarily go by giving voluntary retirement or something like that. Okay, and you need to understand what is the redundant staff, which areas are redundant for you if you have to remove them, right? And what are the employees that you will have to retain, okay? And what are the employees who you can probably make an alternate arrangement, some other firm you can probably shift them or whatever it is, right? And are there any basically arrangements that I can do for these particular affected employees? Whether I'm going to give more pay while they are leaving or whatever it is. And this is all coming under downsizing plan. This completes unit 3 of block 1. I think you can stop recording now. Hello?
Ritika?
He slept off.
Yeah, who's recording, Ritika?
I tried to start, not able to.